What's up, everybody, and welcome to Twisted Bird's review show for the Ubisoft press conference. I'm Paddy. I'm here with Rob.
Hello.
And Alistair.
Hello.
And we're going to be running through the conference, saying what we liked, saying what we didn't like. And the show opened with a bit of a surprise. Miyamoto on stage. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
It is a bit of a weird matchup, isn't it? Like, when I just didn't see it. I mean, I don't know how much Mario have sort of let their IPs go out to third parties, and the fact they've let their flagship IP go out to I mean, I don't know how popular Rabbids is, but yeah, that was a really weird one for me. I thought it was really strange.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically Mario and some Rabbids being led by a Roomba to do some turn-based fighting. It was a new direction for Mario, and I think we all agreed during the conference. It reminds us a lot of XCOM, that kind of battle style.
Yeah, weird, like a turn-based sort of stuff. Yeah,
which is very peculiar for a Mario, but I have high hopes that this will work.
Yeah, I think above all, it kind of signifies this new direction that Nintendo are moving in. We had the Mario mobile game, which was not that well received, I don't think, but it looks like they're really trying to work with different companies, with other partners to
like working new
actually
ways.
Make the Switch not the Wii U 2, like people actually care about it and actually make games for it. So yeah, sounds good with me.
Well, the only thing that I thought was cool is I wasn't really paying attention, but I know they gave a shout out to the guy who had developed a Super Meat Boy and a Binding of Isaac. I can't remember his name, but if you guys get a chance, it's a really good documentary on Netflix called Indie Game the Movie. That is worth checking out.
Okay, so does he must have some kind of involvement then in this?
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I think we were all talking at the time, so I didn't really actually pick up, but I think they were saying he was involved in it. So yeah, those two games were really well received, and yeah, like if he was well involved in it, like I'm on board.
Yeah, and I think it's it's great that Nintendo are willing to make these kinds of arrangements. I mean, how the game actually turns out, who knows? It doesn't look like the kind of thing I'd pick up for my Switch, but at the same time, it's a nice direction. It's kind of signifying that maybe the Switch, which is a great concept, is actually going to stick around and have the games and be worth will actually have some legs, unlike the Wii U. Yeah, and then, well, we're not surprised because we knew it was coming after the Microsoft conference, but the game director for Assassin's Creed Origins came out, showed us another little trailer. Didn't really say much about it. I guess, it's a little bit weird, actually. I thought they'd go hard on it. I mean, I know after the conference they kind of had a half an hour demo to actually watch a level being played. But it is for me, it feels a bit like the theme of this E3, just not seeing very much of games, just seeing little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Seeing quite a lot of games, but just not talking about what they're like or showing you like any sort of detail. Yeah, it is weird, isn't it?
I think they're trying to promote people going to the booths of the publishers or watching their individual streams of the gameplay to try and get more of an idea. So maybe they're kind of going in that direction, just going, hey, general audience, just up yours, you're not going to see anything. But if you're around, watch 30 minutes.
Yeah, and I guess they're also just basing it off the fact that, we're going to see everything. Journalists are going to be playing this game, they're going to be covering it, we'll see previews and we'll see reviews and all that kind of thing. So maybe we don't need to see that much, just those little bits and pieces is enough.
Yeah, because I watched a little bit of the gameplay trailer for Assassin's Creed, and it did seem to have some decent RPG elements. There seemed to be a leveling system, and you could acquire sort of weapons from your enemies, and they level up with you. Or I wasn't too sure on that, but they had a different level as well. And yeah, so it seemed they've added quite a nice RPG element to the Assassin's Creed franchise.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about coming out of an E3 and not maybe knowing more about a game. So, I saw some rumors or whatever about the mechanics being different. There's no more sprint button. That's the kind of thing that is interesting because Assassin's Creed mechanically hasn't always been the best.
No.
You don't need to sell me on sense of place. You don't need to sell me on the concept. You've done that through all the games. That's always been your strongest suit. They've just not always been that fantastic to actually play. So that I would have personally liked to see more of that, but really excited for it. Looks great. Then we saw possibly a game that doesn't going to have a huge amount of interest between the three of us. The Crew 2, just coming early 2018. Anyone have anything particular to say about that one?
It looks like you can now fly and drive boats, and the guy who they're trying to feature as the main character really enjoys racing.
Yeah, he's good at racing, as testified on his social media pages.
Because once again, it was very cinematic and very little actual gameplay, so you still have no idea about the mechanics of the game. You just know it looks very pretty. It's basically what I got from it.
Yeah, you kind of think by now that they would know that really heavily produced cinematics and then games that don't look quite as good don't normally lead to that fantastic coverage, but I guess they're showing whatever they want to show. The game's coming out early next year, so it must be almost ready. I think the first one was had a nice idea, kind of very social, open game that you could, huge map that you could race around. I'm sure this will be exactly the same, but they didn't show anything, so who really knows? And then we had a pretty short trailer for South Park: The Fractured But Whole. Love saying that. Which is coming out October 17th. I guess they really don't need to show us more at this point. It was a little disappointing to not have Matt and Trey out there, and like they did a couple of E3s ago, maybe. That was fun. But I mean, South Park.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it made me laugh, and I think that's all that it needs to be said.
Yeah, it looked very similar to the last game, sort of in style and gameplay. But again, it's really, if you're playing a South Park game, you are going for the narrative. You're not going for the gameplay.
Yeah, and it does make me kind of feel like I really should go back and, finish the first one, The Stick of Truth. I played it a little bit. Turn-based combat isn't really my thing, but probably should go back and actually try and finish it before this one comes out.
It is very much worth it.
Yeah.
It is.
And then things got a little bit weird. Elijah Wood turned up, not as Frodo Baggins, but as some guy in what looks like a horror VR game. It's called Transference. It's coming out spring next year.
Yeah,
so much
any
to say
thoughts
about
on that?
VR needs more like horror games. So yeah.
Yeah.
It looked very psychological, intense, but I mean, again, didn't really see too much of it.
Yeah, I like the concept. I thought it was a really interesting trailer, really interesting way of showing something new. Didn't really see any gameplay or any thing what the game is. Maybe it is. They were talking about it being like being in a film, so maybe it's actually a VR experience that doesn't have kind of graphic-y elements. Maybe it is actually recorded. I don't know, but something to maybe keep an eye on. Then we had I'm going to say probably the biggest surprise was from Ubisoft Singapore, a pirate game, Skull and Bones, coming out fall next year or autumn.
It just seemed like to me. I mean, I think even before like it came on, we were talking about it would be really cool to see a pirate game that was like a Black Flag, but like its own sort of IP. And I think that's what this is. Which I was like, yeah, really cool. But we couldn't really work out whether you were playing as one ship per person or whether you and a few friends would all be on a single ship. And it seems to be like one ship per person. And I don't know. I don't know. At a time where like Sea of Thieves is kind of there, I don't know if this is going to work in the way that Ubisoft, I think it might.
Yeah, well, they did say you could play like solo and with friends. So I guess you could have both elements. But again, like they didn't really show how it worked. Like, would you, if you're playing solo, would you be controlling the ship and then like other controls fired the cannons? Or would you have to, like,
this is what I meant.
between
This is like when they said like a play with friends. Was it a case when you play with friends is that you and your friends on a boat trying to be pirates, or is that you and your friends being a part of a fleet, each person being one boat? I wasn't clear on where that fell.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a PvP mode which does seem like very, very tactical, and like you have to use the right ship in the right way in order to succeed. So I think it's one of those games where you need communication and you need actually a group of friends sitting down and playing together.
Yeah, it kind of looked, I mean, from the way they described the game, from the way they introed it, as this kind of, you're trying to become the greatest pirate ever. So I assume you will all individually be trying to become the greatest pirate ever, and you can probably customize your pirate. And then you will control your ship, and you'll kind of the battle with friends on each of your own individual ships. I think that's probably how it's going to work. But it is a bit disappointing that you can't swing off, and that looked like an animation when you board the other ship. That you can't go over there and actually have hand-to-hand combat, and you probably can't disembark. And I don't know, it would have been nice to not just have hey, here's an open world pirate game that you can play with your friends, but actually give us a really strong narrative pirate game that, encompasses everything, like being on land, exploring, looking for treasure, all that kind of thing. And then, hey, here's this awesome PvP area that you can just mess about with friends. But, again, very little to actually go off with that.
Yeah.
And then, Alistair, your personal highlight, I think, Bebe Rexha came out.
Oh, absolutely loved it.
Sung a little song, Just Dance 2018. Who would have thought a dance number at the Ubisoft press conference?
It came out of nowhere, and I think I'm sold on the game. I'm going to get it.
Cool. Rob?
Yeah, I think
you're known to shake your tail feather.
I think they told us so much about the game that I'm sold as well.
Cool. And then, honestly, I was really worried for a second that we were suddenly going to be getting into a mobile game part of the show. And then it appeared to me that the big phone on the screen and the voiceover was actually one of the South Park guys.
Yeah.
And then my fears were kind of really just relieved. And it is a mobile game, but it's a South Park mobile game, which looks like it uses the battle system from The Stick of Truth or maybe The Fractured But Whole. And yeah, I mean, how do you argue with that? It's awesome.
It does look quite funny. I mean, to be fair, I probably would download it, but wouldn't play it for very long. That's kind of what I'm like when it comes to mobile stuff. But yeah, I'm pleased for him. I mean, obviously, do you remember the episode where they did about a freemium game? So I'm wondering how they're charging for it, how that conflicts with what they're about and stuff. Because one thing that I noticed is they really are going in sort of on the pre-orders and stuff, which they've always sort of hinted at that. Mm-hmm. That they're not mad on that sort of stuff. So
maybe this is all run by Canadian Satan. I mean, it's really difficult to know. And then we got I don't know how to really describe this one, Starline Battle for Atlas, which is coming out at the end of next year on all consoles. And if ever you wanted to stick on a little plastic ship to your controller, this is the game for you.
Yay!
Yeah, that was weird. You could do it on all controllers, and it just seemed like it'd just get in the way. I think you could get downloadable versions of the ships, but I mean, it
I think they're trying to cash in on the whole, like a Skylanders sort of principle of trying to make toys alongside of it. It just seems weird though, because obviously those things sell quite well at a certain sort of a demographic, and the game didn't seem like it was aimed at that sort of demographic.
Yeah, it was kind of like a No Man's Sky looking, but you could fly around and shoot things and get on land and battle things. It was. Yeah,
the jury's out as far as I can see. I just see it as a physical a DLC. I know that he said you could also buy it, but I don't know what it is. But I'm gonna wait for more details before I really make a judgment on it. Really.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like Ubisoft's answer to Skylanders. And I mean, not particularly interesting from my perspective, but be interesting to see actually what happens.
Yeah.
And then another. It's kind of, when they have that little thing in the lower third that tells you what's coming next, and it said new announcement, and I was getting pretty excited, but it turns out it was just some DLC for Steep. Nothing against Steep. It was actually pretty fun. Played the beta, but they've got Road to the Olympics, so they're incorporating some Olympic-style stuff into there.
I think the idea is, on principle, pretty cool, but I just thought one of the appeals was for that sort of game was the fact it was about freedom and sort of exploration and creating your own path. So putting a highly a competitive DLC is one against the core concept. I mean, a lot of the game. So I'm a bit okay then.
I can see why they did it. I mean, it's they've got the mechanics in the game to sort of do
it's on snow. That's the only reason why.
They can snowboard and ski and all that. So they've already got the mechanics built in. And two, I doubt a separate Winter Olympics game would sell that well. So if it's attached to another game and you're well, it's just a DLC, it's pretty easy. It might be a bit cheaper maybe, but I don't trust Ubisoft doing it. Yeah. That it's gonna probably sell a lot better than it would if they brought it out separately, just going buy this instead of it's attached to Steep.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then we got, kind of the thing that I think I was definitely waiting for. Far Cry 5, they showed a little bit more of that. Again, we're really not seeing much of these games.
Yeah.
We're really not seeing anything. It was just kind of another cinematic trailer and then what could have been gameplay, but there was no HUD or anything like that. So it kind of felt a little bit still very produced.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I'm
It was
sold.
there.
I'm sold on
Yeah.
that Far Cry.
It showed you a lot of like the decent elements, sort of like the guns for hire, the fangs for hire, so the dog and like the vehicles you could bring in. So it did show you kind of like some important parts. But yeah, I think they could have gone a bit more on the gameplay.
Very much set the tone as well, which that's fine with me.
Yeah, and I think maybe trying to step away from some of the controversy or whatever they've been getting recently. This is not going to be some super serious game with some deep plot that's going to make you think. You're still going to be able to get into a little plane with a minigun attached to it while your dog rips people apart. It's just going to be the same madness, and I'm definitely down for that. Can't wait for early next year for that to come out. And then they saved their big reveal for last. Now I wish I could get really excited about this, but Beyond Good and Evil 2, anybody super stoked?
I mean, I know for a fact that there'll be a very, very sort of small chunk of the internet going absolutely crazy right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not in that small a corner, but I do appreciate like how that feels. So good for them.
Yeah, Alistair, you're a fan of small corners. Anything to add?
I mean, I do love a good small corner every now and then, but unfortunately, the first one I think they said came out 15 years ago, and that just wasn't really when I was kind of interested in sort of gaming that heavily. So I never really picked it up, and when I first saw it, I had no idea what it was. So this is completely new for me, and I'm interested to see what the game actually is and how it plays.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one of those games that really, I think, it's going to be so much. There's going to be so much, hype about it and buzz about it. But all we saw was a, admittedly very cool cinematic trailer, and Michel Anselme, who's the guy who made the first one, as well as I think the creator of Rayman, came out to talk about it a little bit. He got very emotional, and that was nice. So it really, you felt the weight of the announcement even without really knowing what the game was.
Yeah, because I feel this is going to be like one of those sequels that is almost like the first game in itself, that they try and reintroduce people to it, but it's still a sequel. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of bring in the new players whilst keeping faithful to all those who've waited those 15 years for the second one to come out.
Yeah, and if you can even live up to that kind of crazy legacy. And that ended the show. It was nice. Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, got all the kind of developers that were there on stage, and they all waved us off goodbye. So what do you guys think of the conference overall, and what score would you give it, Rob?
Well, for me, I thought it was overall a good conference. I don't know. They still had their trademark Ubisoft cringe moments. Highlight being like just a dance routine. It's just like they seem to move a lot further away with it, and Aisha Tyler wasn't there as well, which I don't know if I'm like happy about that, or I'm sad about it, but. I used to always enjoy the fact that she was there, but I don't know if I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. But yeah, overall score for me is a 7 out of 10.
Okay, Alistair?
I'm going to agree with Rob on the score. I'll also give it a 7 out of 10 because I don't think for myself and I just take other people's ideas. But yeah, there was enough there to get me a bit excited about what's coming up. But nothing to really throw it over the edge. So my favorite part was definitely the English to Japanese translating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could tell.
Some great facial expressions. I was happy with all that. But yeah, overall a good conference and a lot to be excited about over the next coming years. Cool.
And for me, I mean, they showed 12 games. 3 of them I'm definitely all in on. There's another 2 that looked really interesting. So that's a pretty good ratio. And even though I was a bit disappointed that there wasn't that much gameplay, still pretty exciting. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because cool. I love dance routines.
I mean, it would have got an 8 if there was Splinter Cell, but there wasn't.
Yeah,
so
I know. That was the one thing that made me sad. Cool. So that was our Ubisoft review show for this E3. I hope you enjoyed that. We've got review shows for all the other conferences over at youtube.com/twistedbard and a whole bunch of more gaming stuff at twistedbard.com. I hope you're having a great E3 and we will see you again soon. Bye.